Hello, and welcome to the Action Network Podcast, UFC Betting Preview. Happy to be back on the feed, presented by DraftKings. I'm your host, Sean Zerillo, joined today by Billy Ward to help you break down the UFC Houston card to give you our best bets, favorite underdogs, top props, and more. Before we get into that and Saturday's card, though, which goes down 5 p.m. Eastern in Houston, 8 p.m. main card, we're going to talk about the Gina Carano-Ronda Rousey fight, which is going to be coming up in May. Just got booked. Should be on Netflix, assuming these women both pass the concussion protocols and whatnot that they're going to have to undergo. Billy, what caught my attention, what I didn't remember, Gina Carano retired in 2009, 2 years before Ronda Rousey even debuted. She's 43, Rousey's 39. The opening odds got up as high as Rousey minus 700. It came back down to around minus 400, Carano plus 300. I saw Caposo, who we both love, on Twitter. He basically said Rousey's going to maul her. That was his take. Quick armbar, and that'll be a wrap. Is that your initial takeaway and impression of how you think that fight's going to play out?
Yeah, I thought I was going to have to max bet it at minus 600 or something on the Rousey side. And other friend of the podcast, Griff, who in the Action Network Discord, said he saw some opening lines or some look ahead lines before it was announced with Rousey at minus 400. I was like, man, I'm going to mortgage my house at minus 400. There's two parts of that. One, the time difference, as you pointed out, where Rousey's just that much younger and closer to her career. She didn't even have an amateur fight before Carano retired. The other thing is, though, they're actually different eras. The quality of women's MMA in the late aughts when Carano was fighting was so far behind when Rousey was fighting, which is so far behind, Amanda Nunes or whatever. But even if they were the same actual age, dominating the era that Rousey did is infinitely more impressive than Gina Carano beating up whoever they had for her. Obviously, there were some good fighters then, but it's not the same quality. So between those two factors, assuming Rousey doesn't have some horrible TBI that she's alluded to, yeah, I think minus 400 on Rousey feels like a gift.
Yeah, I'm not even sure where this rivalry budded from. I know they were both in Fast movies. Fast 7 is considered better than Fast 6. So
Gotta be it.
I would assume, Carano maybe has a bone to pick with Rousey a little bit. Fast 7 it's either Fast 7 or Fast 5 is the best in the series, in my opinion. Fast 6 is up there. It's just not on the level of the other two. Let's get into Saturday's main event, though, between Anthony Hernandez and Sean Strickland. Very smooth transition right there. I could see Anthony Hernandez popping up in some kind of Fast movie as one of the guys in their crew. He seems like a dude who would be part of Dom Toretto's crew. And you know what? I think he's going to bring the fight to Sean Strickland this weekend. Sean Strickland, his past few fights, has just been unwilling to engage. His corner just blatantly yelling at him. I saw you post, basically, these are the direct opposite in willingness to do things inside of the octagon. Mm-hmm. Hernandez forces you to fight. Sean Strickland just wants to jab and teep and run away. Big cage is helping here in Houston as opposed to being in the Apex. But also Fluffy is just going to look to get his hands around you and force you in a wrestling match. The stat worth citing, he averages 15 takedowns per 5 minutes at distance. 82% control rate, 62% for Strickland in his grappling exchanges. Hasn't really faced wrestlers on the level of Fluffy. I mean, nobody's really on the level of Fluffy or stylistically in the realm of Fluffy, but also Sean hasn't faced many guys who are going to go in there with him and proactively wrestle. Very curious to see how the first round plays out because Fluffy can give away minutes early. We saw the Roman Kopylov fight. I don't remember if he ended up losing the first round, but certainly lost early minutes. You were able to get a better live price on him. He's weak to the body. We've seen him get hurt to the body multiple times. That's how Kevin Holland put him away. Strickland, there's really not a lot of power coming off of his punches. It's a lot of jabs. It's a lot of teeps. I actually think Fluffy's striking is super underrated. That's what has impressed me looking back at the Dolidze fight, looking back at the Michelle Pereira fight. His boxing has gotten so much better, and he's also just willing to throw power behind his punches. And when your hands are low defending takedowns, he's going to find openings to land damage on you. So Fluffy, for me, is actually a little undervalued here. I like him up to about minus 300. That's where I projected him as a parlay piece. I think you may get a better live price, though, after 5 minutes. Potentially not, though. If he just gets to the grappling right away, it's going to float up immediately. If he has immediate success in the grappling, I think it's going to start getting a little bit out of control in terms of the early odds adjustment. I mean, he may be minus 900 in the second round if he's landing takedowns. But that said, Sean, if he has success, I think it's going to come in the early minutes, maybe get a better live price on Fluffy. Now, Billy, you're taking the plus 9.5 on Sean Strickland. Was minus 110 when I saw it open. I guess you link it up to about minus 125, or it is minus 125 currently. And are there any other ways you're considering betting on this fight? Fluffy live, any late round props? It is worth noting, this is an odd spot where, I mean, when you see the progression of round props on a fight, it always starts with the cheapest price being round one, and the biggest odds, the biggest hit being round 5. You know, it might go from plus 500 to 10 to 1 to 15 to 1 to 21 or 25 to 1. Fluffy's props for this fight are directly inverse correlated, where his most expensive odds, or his best price, is to finish the fight in round 1. It's over 10 to 1, whatever have you. And then his round 5 odds have actually decreased closer to 8 to 1. So I assume because of that reason, the round props do not interest you, but maybe a live bet could.
Yeah, no, that was hilarious. I'm glad you brought it up. I was going to mention it. No, it's a really weird fight, and I'm super intrigued by it because, you know, as you referenced my tweet, like, Fluffy Hernandez does more things than anyone in the UFC, and Sean Strickland avoids doing things better than anyone in the UFC. Like, the last DDP fight, they kept it on Eric Nixick between every round, just so you could hear Nixick yelling at Sean Strickland. And every time he was just like, I need you to do stuff. Like, I need more output. That's all he was saying every time. And the commentary was saying it, and the crowd was saying, like, everyone but Sean Strickland knew that he at least had to try to do more things. And he steadfastly continued to, like, jab, throw the occasional right hand, and deep kick in there. But with all of that said, Anthony Hernandez isn't, like, actually a good wrestler. He just does a lot of stuff. Like, Brendan Allen reversed him a couple times, stole the first round from him, had more opportunities to, and probably could have if he weren't so tired from chasing Anthony Hernandez around, you know, understandably. So I think Strickland early on, he's an underrated grappler. He can wrestle. I actually kind of expect him to win the first round. Like, if we had one of those to win first round bets and could get it at Strickland at a big price, I would take Sean in that. Which leads me to the plus 9.5, because he wins that first round. You only have to cover one round, assuming you make it to the finish. Strickland, I don't think, has ever been submitted, or it's been a really long time if he has. Fairly solid defensively. I don't think he's going to fade down the stretch. Even when he wasn't doing stuff against DDP, he had a broken nose, was getting beat up, managed to finish the fight. So a late finish in there is a risk. But the great thing about this bet is if Strickland wins the first round, then we'll get a better price on Hernandez, and in theory be able to cover and come out with a profit either way. So I'm looking at this one. There's a famous Dan Gable quote. He says, the first round is won by the technician. The second round is won by the kid with the better gas tank. The third round is won by the kid with the bigger heart. I think Hernandez has the better gas tank and heart, but Strickland might be the better overall technician here, which all we need is one round, and that will give us an opportunity to cash both of these bets and kind of thread that needle where we got a point spread on one guy and a live money line on the other.
Yeah, I actually don't think I see Strickland getting finished either. I think he does make it to the final bell. I think it's going to be up to him whether that happens. You know, in terms of the late fight dynamics and how Fluffy's flowing on top of him, you know, in a similar manner to how he's flowing on top of Brendan Allen, like you said, because Allen's scrambling, Strickland's scrambling, his ability to get up, both very solid. But Brendan Allen tends to do things to put himself in bad positions where he gets caught or, you know, gets reversed or gets submitted. Sean Strickland, I think, will probably just kind of lock down position and accept it and maybe get top timed a little bit and survive.
And Allen made it to the end.
I'm sorry?
Despite his best efforts, Allen made it to the end. Like, he was trying to snatch that defeat from the jaws of victory as fast as he could, but he still made it all 15. So,
yeah, I think a lot of people are expecting Fluffy to ultimately find the finish here. I think Strickland is going to find a way to survive, but I do like Fluffy to see his hand raised, and I do like him as a parlay piece. Maybe a same game parlay, Fluffy in the over. You do need to get Fluffy in over 3.5 though in order to get it near even money. That's why I was a little leery. Like, I don't know if I want to play with the final 7.5 minutes. You know, being the only out I have That seems like if a finish comes, it could really come at any point. I'd say after round 2 probably, but I think it's going to be up to Strickland if he wants to keep fighting and live to see another round and look for a knockout blow, or whether he's just going to maybe accept submission for bottom, which is not something we've seen him do. But again, not seen him against a grappler of this caliber with this relentlessness very often. Let's move on to the co-main event between Jeff Neal.
If I could jump in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just fun stat I wanted to include in there. This fight features the UFC's middleweight all-time takedown leader, and Anthony Hernandez has the middleweight record for takedowns. And the UFC's all-time record in significant strikes in the middleweight division is Sean Strickland. So fun little stat that I've noticed while watching tape on both these guys. They both in recent fights set those records. So as binary as it could be on paper, at least.
On paper, yeah, but I wouldn't say like
but
stylistically it's not, because we're both like they're both competent enough in the area where the other's stronger that I think it's going to go all 25 minutes, even though I'm not going to bet it to go all 25 minutes. The odds suggest that I think it's juiced to end inside the distance, right? So
it's close to even depending on where you look, but
we
give or
both
take
seem to be leaning over, goes to decision there, but Strickland probably losing 4 rounds to 1 or 3 rounds to 2, I think is how we both see that one playing out. Let's move on to the co-main event between Jeff Neal and Uros Medic in the welterweight division. Neal coming back from a knockout loss to Carlos Prates. Medic, I believe, coming in off of a couple of wins. We're on opposite sides of this matchup. I like Neal as the favorite. He's 2 inches shorter. He has a 4-inch reach advantage, though. He's also talked a lot this week about his sobriety. Seems like he went through an absolute hell of a time, not only with his health. We knew he fought the liver damage, and he had like a severe bout of COVID that he overcame as well. He had stuff even before that too. Jeff Neal had a ton of health issues, but as a result of that, went into depression, was dealing with alcoholism. Seems like he's emerged out on the other side and been sober for a few months, but just stylistically, even if this was the Jeff Neal that I knew I was handicapping 6 months ago off of tape, I do think he's not only the better striker here, the more powerful striker, Medic faster for the first round, but I think Jeff Neal is going to win this fight via grappling. We've seen him implement the takedowns against Vicente Luque, against RDA. 73% control rate in grappling exchanges and clinch exchanges for Jeff Neal, just 11% for Uros Medic, 90% takedown defense for Neal, 56% for Medic. I think Jeff Neal is going to hit a takedown here in at least one round and potentially finish the fight from top position. I haven't liked what I've seen from Medic when he gets put flat on his back. He tends to like roll over and end up turtling and accepting some ground and pound. And I don't know if he's going to be able to handle the damage from Neal either. Now, that said, Neal is coming off of that knockout. We haven't seen him get hurt that often. And Medic is fast and dangerous in the first round. And I think the first round is going to be extremely competitive. I could even see Medic winning the first round. I just expect Neal and his power to sustain longer into the fight and to eventually put Medic away in the second or third round, if not win a decision. So I like Neal pre-fight, but I actually prefer him live probably after round 1, because I think Medic is going to maybe hurt him in round 1, or at minimum, it will be extremely competitive. You like Medic to potentially finish the fight inside the distance. Could probably even consider a round 1 play as well, because I think that's when Medic is clearly at his most dangerous. So what did you see here, Billy, in terms of your breakdown for this fight? And you'll have a full written breakdown for this one up on actionnetwork.com as well.
Yeah, just finished that full written breakdown. Before I get to my thoughts, you actually sold me on a bet that you didn't mention by accident. Jeff Neal over half a takedown is plus 250.
Yeah.
At DraftKings. And if he's going to win, I think you're 100% right on that. I approached this breakdown basically breaking it down as a kickboxing match, because that's what both guys do most of the time. But you're 100% right. Like, if he mixes that in, that's a really good angle. And I'm going to definitely have that, and then I'll have 2 plus 200 bets on this fight. I feel like one or the other is going to hit. This was a really weird one to break down, so I'm not going to get super deep into it because I do have the article. But Uros Medic, all of his losses are against lefties, and he got dropped by Semmelsberger, who switches stances when Semmelsberger was standing lefty, and then Medic knocked him out when Semmelsberger switched back to righties. This is a lefty-on-lefty matchup. Neal, the only lefty he's fought in the UFC was RDA. It was a 90-second fight. RDA hurt his knee. Doesn't really tell us anything. The really weird part, though, is Jeff Neal, while he stands southpaw, I would bet a lot of money he's actually a right-hander, like in his real life. He writes with his right hand. because most southpaws in opposite stance matchups, they want to be really left-handed. They throw straight lefts down the pipe. They try to circle to their right, get those angles. He uses more jabs and hooks off of his lead hand, and it's almost like he stands that way just to put his lead hand closer to you so he can hit you more with that. Because of that, I don't think he's the like southpaw threat that Jalen Turner or Soriano or these other lefties that have hurt Medic is. So there's my logic there. And then he's lost 3 of his last 4, with the only win being the aforementioned RDA fight. I think that's mostly a level of competition thing. I don't think he's really slipping, but he is 35 and has, you know, even if you've been sober for 3 months, a lifetime of various health issues and all those things, it catches up to you, right? So there's that factor. And then the final piece on Jeff Neal, I just worry about the knockout to Carlos Prates fairly recently, going against a strong striker in Medic. It wasn't that recent. It was close to 6 months at this point. But, you know, it was a bad optics as he got real knocked out. That wasn't like a, you know, standing TKO. He was just dead with that spinning elbow. So all factors. And then if you're going to bet Medic, it has to be inside the distance. He's never won a decision. I think one of his UFC fights has made it past like the 1.5, or one of his UFC wins has made it past the midway point of the second round, which also leads me to, if Medic has a big first round, doesn't get him out of there, live bet on Neal is my other like semi-hedge. So I think we're kind of seeing it the same way. I didn't really consider the grappling, but I'm going to immediately, when we get off this podcast, make sure I get that plus 250 before people hear it, because those move a lot. So sorry.
Yeah. I think the only way that takedown doesn't come into play is if, you know, they just swing it out and they dead, you know, somebody dead somebody else in the first 90 seconds of the fight. If it extends, I definitely think Jeff is going to, at minimum, clinch and then probably look to get a takedown from the clinch. So, yeah, I completely agree. They've faced vastly different levels of competition. My concerns lie with, you know, the recent knockout. If he hadn't been knocked out 6 months ago, you know, if he was coming into this fight, you know, the Shavkat fight being the most recent finish loss for him, you know, and didn't have that protest loss at minus 225, I think this would be a humongous deal. I think the main concern is, how does he look 6 months after a knockout? So we'll move on now to our favorite underdogs on this card. You're going to take a shot on the rematch and an underdog from a fight who I believe is around even money the first time they fought, Nora Cornell against Jocelyn Edwards. Edwards is 6 years younger. She closed about minus 120 in the first fight. She's now minus 300 in this rematch. The media had the scorecards about 50-50 in the first fight, 29-28. Either way, it is worth noting, though, 75% of fans scored the bout for Edwards, and more had it 30-27 for Edwards than had it 29-28 the other way. It did seem during it playing out, or in the immediate aftermath, that everybody was crying obvious robbery. I found it interesting to go back and see the media scorecards split, because a lot of the media members who scored it, not all, but a lot of the media members whose scores are on there, are physically in the arena and are scoring it and seeing the fight a little bit differently than sometimes we see it play out on TV. And I thought it was also worth noting that none of them scored it 30-27. So, Billy, you're taking a shot here on Cornell to either win the fight or, at minimum, to cover her point spread and win a round and lose 29-28 at worst. So what did you see going back watching that first fight, and what have you seen in their fights since? Do you think Edwards has not improved as much as I would suspect other people think she has, because she's gotten finishes in the interim?
Yeah, so really interesting that you brought up the media versus fan dichotomy. There's 2 fights that stood out on this card. Jeff Neal has the split decision loss to Ian Gary, where the fans were like 50-50 or favored Gary, and all the media gave it to Jeff Neal. I think that one is just because people don't like Ian Gary. It doesn't really have anything to do with the fight. This one, though, I went back and watched it, and it's very close. You shouldn't complain either way. But the way the criteria is written, and we've seen all that stuff, Edwards was getting takedowns and not doing much with them, and Cornell was doing a ton of damage during relatively brief stand-up exchanges. Former, you know, elite level kickboxer who's still fairly new to MMA. So the 2 things for me is that fight was closer than people remembered. It was not a robbery. You could tell me that Edwards won, and I'm not going to argue with you, but it certainly wasn't a robbery. And Cornell had only been an MMA fighter for like 2 years at that point. So even though she's on the older side at 36, you know, she was young in her career when she fought. So She had been less than 2 years as a pro MMA fighter when she fought Jocelyn Edwards the first time. So in the 3 years since then, she's more than doubled her MMA experience. You would imagine most of that was spent grappling. She's pretty clearly the better striker than Jocelyn Edwards, I believe. And she might be the better striker of almost anyone in the division. So that's not a knock on Edwards. If she can keep this standing for even a single round or most of one round, she covers the point spread. She keeps it standing for most of 2 rounds. We get the money line play. That's how I see it coming up. She'll get taken down at some point, but probably not 5 again, and probably not take a ton of damage when she does get taken down because she's so big and strong and just powers out of it.
Let's move on to a couple fights that I like from an underdog perspective. We'll see if we can get Billy on board for either of them. The first one, Dan Ige against Melky Costa in the featherweight division. I think Ige may be a better live bet here than he is pre-fight because he does tend to get a little bit better as his fights go on. Won the 3rd round in his fight against Diego Lopez, won the 3rd round via finish against Sean Woodson after coming on in the 2nd. I believe he also won the 3rd round against Patricio Pitbull in his last fight as well. Conversely, Melky Costa, we've seen kind of fade down the stretch against C-Rod. Seen him kind of slow down later in his fights, particularly when he's looking to implement the grappling. And that is the likeliest way he beats Dan Ige in this fight is getting on top, getting top time at least through the first 10 minutes or so. Looking at their respective stats and control rates, Melky, the more efficient striker. Ige certainly carries more power. The takedown success rates, the control rates, they're relatively even. Melky's grappling stats don't necessarily blow me away, but we have seen Ige just getting, taken down, dismantled by guys who wouldn't expect him to. Korean Zombie, I think, was the one that really sticks out in hindsight. Nobody really expected that going into that fight between those two. And that's TKZ just kind of held him down for the entirety of that matchup. So I like Ige to at least win a round here. You do have to pay a pretty hefty price on the point spread. The +3.5 is -170, -180 for a fighter who's +185 on the money line. I'm going to consider taking some of his money line. I do make him about +165, so I don't think there's a huge edge there necessarily. I think the best spot may just come live after round 1, in addition to that point spread. So Billy, Danny Ige against Melky Costa. Of the 2 underdogs, the one I'm a little bit more tepid about, I prefer the next fight that we'll get to in a moment. But I do like Ige live quite a bit. Do you have any thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I actually lean towards both of the underdogs, including the next one. The problem I had with both these guys, I've bet against their opponents in various points and seemingly always get burned. I've never been that impressed by Melky Costa, but he just keeps winning and making me look stupid when I say that. So it's a little bit of PTSD on my part. With that said, especially if I can get like the point spread at a little better price, maybe it moves or something. I do like the point spread. Dan Ige never been finished in the UFC for sure, maybe never at all. And that includes showing up on like 40 minutes notice or whatever to fight Diego Lopez. So like if you can make it through against Diego Lopez, like fresh off the massage table as the story went, like probably not going to get finished by Melky Costa. So yeah, I'm with you. I think point spread probably the way to do it, but we'll get there.
Yeah, you have to lay a pretty hefty price on the point spread. Maybe it's a parlay piece with Fluffy or something else that you like on the card. Other underdog that I'm taking an eye at this weekend, Phil Rowe against John Paul Laboznoyani. I would assume, based on your comment, that you tried to fade JPL in Contender Series and got burned. Yeah, that seemed to indicate to me when you said you got burned in the past going against the opponent. So didn't realize that. I know that was a relatively surprising and violent finish for him on Contender Series because from what I've gathered, he comes from a little bit more of a grappling background. But Phil Rowe, even though he's 9 years older, has just a huge size advantage here. JPL is not particularly big for welterweight, but Rowe is a very big welterweight. His 4 inches taller, has an 8-inch reach advantage here, which could lead to some difficulty. JPL looks to find his range in the first round. Phil Rowe, also a BJJ black belt, never been... I believe Phil Rowe has never been finished in his career either. But I make Rowe about +120. I like him all the way down to +130. And I also like this fight to go long and to go all 15 minutes. Average fight in this division goes to a decision about 45% of the time. Market is giving you closer to +150 and 40%. I think it's a coin flip. I think it's a 50-50 bet that they're giving you +150 to go all 15 minutes. And I think Rowe is about +175 in a fight where he should be a slight dog. Also think he's worth considering live after round 1 as well. If he gets taken down, is able to pop back up at some point, just it's not necessarily a cardiodynamic analysis, more so he's just a bigger dude and is going to be difficult to deal with. And once he figures out the grappling from his opponent, if he's able to get things back at range, he should win at range. So give me Phil Rowe in the fight to go to a decision, both at pretty nice plus money numbers. Billy, either of those bets, both of those bets you on board with, and how do you feel about the live market here too?
Yeah, I'm probably staying away. I do like the live angle. Just a couple of things to add. Phil Rowe finished in his pro debut back in a long time ago, and never since then, 2014, unless you count the flying triangle choke from Craig Jones at a random karate combat event that was hilarious, which everyone should go back and watch. Phil Rowe was not trying very hard. He was just hanging out. Both guys have grappling losses to Cody Steele somehow at different points in their career. Phil Rowe made it to a decision. JPL was finished by Cody Steele, although that was combat jiu-jitsu where they're allowed to slap each other on the ground. Don't put any weight in any of that I just said. Just thought those were interesting. And yeah, I bet against him on the Contender Series. His opponent was like plus 400, so I wasn't expecting to hit necessarily. But then for him to just come out and kill him in 70 seconds or whatever, those make it hard for me to bet because it's just not enough information for me to adjust my priors on based on the tape study before the Contender Series. Even if it's good, you start to do it in 60 seconds. Like that doesn't tell me a lot about your overall skill set. So then I struggle and it makes me want to stay away. So maybe this one will get a few minutes and I'll be able to adjust my thoughts on JPL moving forward.
Yeah, we'll certainly find out his level. I just feel like in the aggregate, those guys who impress on Contender Series, get the quick finishes, come into the promotion as, established favorites over guys who are established UFC fighters. I think in the aggregate, taking these established vets at plus money, plus 175, at least to be competitive and for the fight to go all 15 minutes, I think, all over time, I think that'll probably end up profiting. If you're on Twitter, we have a great new feature. If you see a bet from any of your favorite action experts or anyone on gambling Twitter, you can now tag @Playbook and tell our bot to build you a bet slip and a book of your choice. It will build it out for you a quick slip link that opens right up to your sports book. So keep an eye out for a new tool @Playbook on Twitter. Also, should have UFC projections now in the Action Network app. I know the money line projections are in there. Those are my modeled projections that I use based upon rebalancing consensus picks and data that I have across multiple different data sources, factoring in divisional averages, what have you. I'm not sure if the prop odds are going to be fully in there yet, or the prop projections are going to be fully in there yet. You can input pretty much all props at this point, but we hope to have the inside the distance and the winning method projections, etc., in there shortly. But if you go to the Pro Tool in the Action Network app, the moneyline projections should be available for you to peruse, and I will update those, continually as we get closer to the fights. I get better and better data.
The Action Network podcast is sponsored by DraftKings Sportsbook, and in partnership with DraftKings, our listeners get a great offer right now. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Pick 6 and have a shot to win cash prizes. To get started, use promo code Action Network when signing up with DraftKings. Again, use promo code Action Network when signing up and bet $5 to get $200 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. The crown is yours.
Going to move on to a couple of fights, 4 fights actually, that we like from a prop perspective. We'll see if Billy can convince me to avoid the fight that he's betting on, because I would be head-to-head with him. So I'm going to look for him to give him a convincing argument for me in the Ode Osborne against, I believe it's Alibi Adiris. I don't know if it's Alibi Adiris, but it's spelled Alibi.
Elba.
Yeah, it's spelled Alibi, and I know the last name is Adiris. So it's a flyweight bout between Ode Osborne and Alibi Adiris. Now, the projection here, and I don't have enough information on Adiris. I haven't actually watched his tape. So this is a fight that I haven't bet as of yet. I'll need to go back and get more information on it before I would fire. Projection likes me to bet the over and for Ode to potentially last all 15 minutes, but I know Billy likes the under and for somebody to finish this fight and for Adiris to be the guy who is likelier to get that done. So Billy, what did you see in your breakdown of this matchup? And what did you think of Adiris in his loss in the Ultimate Fighter finale to Joseph Morales?
Yeah, every time I read his name, I pronounce it in my head as Idris Elba. So he's just Stringer Bell from The Wire to me. even though he's like a much smaller man from Kazakhstan or wherever. So not a physical resemblance, but a name resemblance there that I'm rolling with. You can't stop me. I think the tough finale said more about Joseph Morales' grappling than it did anything about Stringer Bell, because Morales is like, he was on like a college grappling team, which I didn't know exists or whatever, trains at AKA with Cormier and those guys, like just really solid overall, and took him down and did that plan and looked really good doing it. Ode Osborne doesn't grapple. He's going to stand there and trade shots with you. And Adiris throws all kinds of crazy hard stuff, spinning kicks, things like that. One thing that happens when you spin is you really raise the odds of somebody getting knocked out. It might be you, but you're going to raise the odds of a knockout happening in general anytime you get that wild and loose. So I really like the ends inside the distance there. I think one of them finds a punch that puts the other one down. I think it's likely to be Adiris, just because I doubt Osborne's durability at this point in his career. He's taken some bad ones and getting up there a little bit. So his inside the distance is plus 220. Fight to end inside the distance is minus 136. Obviously, I'll be heavier on the fight to end inside the distance, so I make sure, Odie finish still pays me a profit, but I think it's more likely to be Adiris, and then I'll have a ton of him in DFS for those reasons, because a stoppage at his price point is really valuable.
Yeah, probably a fight I'm going to end up passing on just because, one, I don't want to be directly against your read head-to-head, and two, not a particularly confident goes to decision bet for me. Flyweight violence just tends to end up happening,
it's so much fun to bet on.
See it coming. Yeah, the flyweights just absolutely kill each other. It's funny too, because flyweight was phased out of the UFC because they were considered boring, mostly because Demetrius Johnson was just cleaning out the division, but mostly beating guys by decision. Now it's the heavyweights who can't finish each other, and they're just going to sloppy decisions every time.
We could
somebody in the heavyweight division needs to be cut, and they need to earn their way back to the promotion. I'm not fully against that at this point. They've just been an absolute drag on every single card that they're on. Thankfully, I don't think we have any heavyweight fights at UFC Houston. Normally, Derek Lewis would be involved in this card, but his most recent fight did not go particularly well either. He's among the reasons we're complaining about heavyweight MMA at the moment. Let's move on to a few fights I like from a prop perspective. We're going to take it actually from the top of the card. It's Juliana Miller going against Carly Judas. Now, this is an extremely binary fight. Judas is also the biggest favorite on the card, though. I believe she's as low as minus 750. On the higher end, she's closer to minus 900. Only has a 2-inch reach advantage, but she's the much better striker here, and she showed pretty good takedown defense in her last fight. Miller is the much better grappler. She has a BJJ black belt, but she needs this fight on the ground. Just 36% striking defense on the feet. She's going to get lit up if she's not able to get takedowns. I like Judas to finish her and to get it done pretty quickly. Minus 125 to win in round 1 or round 2, plus 500 by round 2 KO. 850 is round 3 KO. I'm not sure if Miller ends up making it quite that far. It's why I like the round 1, round 2 prop, or especially I think the sweet spot is that round 2 knockout prop for Carly Judas. As well, if she happens to get taken down in round 1, survives, fight starts back on the feet in round 2, and, her price moves into minus 400 because she lost the first round, probably consider an entry at that point as well, provided she showed she can at least scramble back up to her feet near the end of the round. Billy, do you have any thoughts on Judas against Juliana Miller, the first fight on Saturday's card?
No, I like your read. You nailed it. The one thing I'll say is Juliana Miller is not only just a grappler. She's like a 2004 grappler where she didn't really learn a ton of wrestling.
She's Ryan Hall.
Yes, I was going to say Cron Gracie, who we saw more recently. Same kind of deal, and that's just not a sustainable plan against someone good. With that said, in this women's flyweight, you can sneak by for a while but not against Carly Judas, I guess is the point. So probably tell you do like the round 1-2 combo, something like that. And then also she's very expensive, and I like a lot of favorites on this card, so it's hard to get to. But what a DFS play. I mean, she averages over 10 significant strikes per minute. So if it goes the distance, she's going to 150 significant strikes, well within the range of possibility. And if it doesn't, she gets a knockout. So, great play either way, but by far the most expensive on the card, and it's hard to find value.
May also get the round 2 knockout with like a ton of volume behind it as well. Very possible.
There's many ways that to go right.
Yeah, I'll be using a bunch of Judas this week. And another fighter I'll be using wherever possible is Yadier Del Val going against Jordan Leavitt, one of our podcast favorites. Unfortunately, though, for Jordan, this matchup just could not imagine a bigger physicality differential between two fighters. YDV, an actual good athlete, Jordan Leavitt, like me, a law student. So it's like if you threw me in BJJ training for my entire life, let me hit pads a few times and said, yeah, you're good enough to be at this level. And then you just get mauled by a dude who's an actual world-class athlete. So best of luck to Jordan Leavitt this weekend. I think he's just going to get out-muscled like we've seen against in other fights. Paddy Pimblett, for instance, took the back, ended up choking him out. I think that's how this one ultimately goes. I actually show value on Del Val to win by submission. He's as high as plus 290. I make that line closer to plus 150. His knockout prop is favored. I'm going the other direction. I also, though, like him to win in round 1 or round 2 at minus 115. And if you parlay the the Judas and Yadier Del Val props to win in round 1 or round 2, minus 125, minus 115, that pays out closer to about plus 240 to get both of those fighters to win in the first 10 minutes. Billy, how do you feel about the submission prop on Yadier Del Val? And how do you feel about the round 1, round 2 prop as well?
Love both of those. I used YDV as my climb bet. If anyone's been following along with that, I'm on step 5. He was like minus 340 earlier in the week, which was just nuts. Like it's moved up closer to minus 500 at this point. The crucial part of that, of your analogy that you made, is then they threw you into a fight against like an elite level judo guy who you're not going to be able to take down. Because that scenario you made up, like you throw him in there against a guy with some striking and no grappling, yeah, you'll have some wins. And as the Monkey King has, just a god-awful matchup for him. He's also going down to 145, which probably helps the athleticism a touch, but not against YDV, man. That dude's a tank. So horrible matchup. The other thing I'll have to add, I don't know when DraftKings will put these up. Seen some other sites set Jordan Leavitt's takedown prop at 1.5. He's not going to take YDV down. I don't know how we think that'll happen. So if you can get under 1.5 takedowns on Leavitt, 1, you can't take someone down when you're unconscious, and 2, you probably can't take him down even if he is conscious. So that is like, if it comes up on DraftKings at that same number, which it might not, that's going to be a big bet for me as well.
Good shout out by you on the takedown prop there. Yeah, that I will be looking for in addition to the Jeff Neal plus 250 over half a takedown prop as well. Another fighter I like to finish things, potentially though later on, Alden Choria against Luis Garule. Garule is talented for a round, but he tends to fade after 5 minutes. And I think Choria is really going to take over after that point. He's 5 years younger. I think he's the much better prospect of the pair, but he trains with Josh Van, who has a very similar style, that building kind of fight style that I want to see from Choria in this matchup. And his round 2 and round 3 props are really nice prices, 6-1 and 10-1 respectively. They can look at his money line live after round 1. Additionally, I like the fight to end inside the distance. Plus 115, I make it about minus 125. So if he gets finished in the first round, we're still going to get paid out, even if you're sprinkling those round 2 and round 3 props late. But ideally, he finishes this fight in the second or third round. We end up cashing both bets, and you can take a look again at his money line live after 5 minutes. Billy, how did you break this one down between Choria and Garule?
Yeah, no thoughts on this. Did not get to this one. One just little fun thing I'll add in there. The foundation style of Choria, officially on Tapology, KO Gang. I still don't know what that means. It used to be a gym. Now it's a foundational style. It might be like a t-shirt you can buy, but shout out to the KO Gang or Ko Gang. I don't even know that I'm saying it right. Nobody knows, but it's provocative. So yeah, Ko Gang in the building in Houston this week.
Maybe it's like Militich Fighting Systems where it's both a gym and a fighting style, you know?
It's more of just a concept, I think. It's like something you feel in your heart than anything tangible. But yeah, every time I see the Ko Gang pop up, I'm like, what are we doing here? But
we're gonna
Tapology Tapology must let you just fill that out on your own before they look into it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do some research into the KO Gang. It could be either. We're not really sure at this point.
KO Gang is funnier.
Feel free to contact us because this is a mystery that has eluded us for well over a year at this point, and it continues.
We could use an official apparel sponsor for the podcast, KO Gang or KO Gang. So let us know.
I will proudly wear some KO Gang or KO Gang, whatever it is. I'll learn the right way to call it. I'll probably wear some of their apparel if they're willing to send it over, but I might go and purchase some of my own at this point anyway to support it, considering the amount that we talk about it, or just to keep the joke learning. Let's move on to our best and final bets. There's a number of fights that we both like here, a little bit more than the rest on this card. These are definitely best bets for me. I mean, I have a little bit more risk on these relative to, the props and whatnot. All money line plays straight up for me. Billy and I are in agreement on one of these fights, though. So let's start there between Sergey Spivak and Ante Delia. Now, Billy, I know you write your luck ratings column every week. Typically, you're discussing split decisions. I don't know if you included Ante Delia in your column this week, but if you did, it would have been the most unique instance ever in that he won his fight, but then lost his fight because the refs messed up. Walter Cortez Acosta did a great job acting, and Ante Delia went over to celebrate with his corner and totally cardio dumped and adrenaline dumped because he celebrated after winning his fight. Now, the fact that he was able to hurt Waldo, but also Waldo didn't seem particularly fazed by it, was extremely awkward. That said, in the first 5 minutes of this matchup, he should have a massive speed advantage over Sergey Spivak. And frankly, I think he already fought this fight. When I was thinking of this matchup, I was like, didn't he already fight? Oh, it was Marcin Tybura. I mean, the Marcin Tybura matchup is basically the same, like a slightly slower, older guy relative to Sergey Spivak. But by and large, I think Tybura is maybe even better at like keeping himself safe, fighting into the clinch. Spivak just kind of gets hung out to dry at range. And I think Delia's hands are going to be too quick for him. So we both like Delia here. I make him about minus 160. I think you could take him up to minus 150, but I also like his round one KO prop as well at plus 280. I think he gets this one done pretty quick. It is binary though. I mean, you're talking about a +7 to -3 significant strike differential per minute and a 72% versus 16% control rate in clinch and grappling exchanges. Granted, pretty small sample for Delia to this point, but I think it was one of the first bets you entered in the app this week, and you might have gotten a much better price. Did you get a better price than 130 on this as well?
It was a worse price. He actually opened it like minus 150. I've been throwing half of a unit on it, about every 10 cents since that happened. Yeah, you nailed it. The first line of my luck ratings was, this is an extremely unique case from a luck standpoint, because it's not really luck. It's just a weird situation out there. Only thing I'll add to your analysis, which is, again, you could have done this one without me and got most of the points. Normally in a fight like that with Delia, it was 3 months ago, and he legitimately got knocked out after that. The second knockout of that fight was more legitimate. 3 months ago, you go, that's a little concerning. Sergey Spivak has 75 UFC fights, 0 knockdowns in that time span. So against almost any other heavyweight, I would go, yeah, he's undervalued because of the loss, but you got to watch out for this. Not this one. So yeah, it's wheels up. I'm flying off to anti-Delia land on this one. And I haven't tracked them all in the app, but I've continued to bet small increments every time the price drops again. I go, okay, here's a little more.
Do you like that round one KO prop as well, plus 280?
Yeah, I can see KO in general. I haven't looked at the lines on that. I've been so committed to his money line before those props came out that I don't need my whole life savings on anti-Delia this weekend. But yeah, sure, great. I like that one as well. I would check out just the general KO, because the first 20 seconds of round 2 always drives me crazy on this.
Other fight you like from best bets perspective, Ramiz Brahimaj against Puna Soriano. Big numbers on goes to decision and Brahimaj by decision here. I actually think Brahimaj can win a decision here. He's around 7-1 to win a decision. I think he's just gotten a lot better. I mean, you can make the argument for it, but clearly gotten better, dealt with health issues earlier in his career as well. I might prefer, if I'm choosing a guy to live bet after round 1, I think I decided it's Brahimaj. We tend to see Puna fade, and his power really drops off after 5 minutes. So I might take a very small stab here on Brahimaj by decision at 7-1. I'm curious how you see it playing out and what you see his likeliest winning method is obviously submission. He's won 12 of his 13 fights by submission. The other one, he ended up knocking out his opponent. But do you get the argument for him potentially winning the decision and being able to be competitive with Puna in an extended fight? Is that why you like him on the money line?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. I think I have no idea what the line is, but decision only on Brahimaj would also make a lot of sense. If you want to dip your toes in and not go as hard. It's an interesting fight because Brahimaj, obviously a better grappler, known as a grappler. I've been very impressed with his striking in his recent fights.
Yeah.
Puna was like a pure power puncher, mixed in a lot of grappling lately, and has been impressive with it. The big thing for me, though, is Brahimaj is like my case study of the you bet a guy the second fight after a serious injury. His first fight after a serious injury was against Temba Grimbo. Just couldn't really get going, looked kind of bad, looked kind of rusty. He's rattled off 3 in a row, and we keep getting like really good lines on him. So he was plus 120 against Mickey Gall, which was a steal. Then he was, against Billy Ray Goff, he was plus 310. Again, that's crazy. Who's Billy Ray Goff? Austin Vanderfoot in his last fight, plus 240. Slight, favorite in this one, but I feel like we're learning the same lesson over and over again that he's actually really good when his neck works, which it didn't for a while in there, and is a crucial thing. Will be a scary couple of minutes if Puna's trying to stand and bang with him. We get through that, I think we got it. So live bet, the decision bet is a great look. Decision only, or just money line. I like Brahimaj in all those forms.
Decision only plus 205, and agree on the live bet as well. Yeah.
I think wow. Yeah, I'm going to add that one.
Both really solid angles. I'm into the fact that we both like his striking improvements and his ability to win an extended fight more than, just looking at the Wikipedia and being like, 13 finishes in 13 fights. This guy's gotten a lot better. And I think he's capable of sustaining, especially against an opponent like this, who is pretty much guaranteed to fade after 5 to 7 minutes in terms of his effectiveness and his power. So, yeah, that's interesting fight there.
Crazy decision only line. I would have reversed those if I was making those lines. That's crazy to me.
I would have made it closer to a pick 'em, but yeah, plus 205 seems very generous. I'll definitely be taking a small stab on that, and probably the decision prop at 7-1 as well.
Yeah.
Probably put 0.1 on each, maybe, and hope to make a unit if he ends up winning a decision ultimately. A couple of fights that I like from a best bets perspective. Again, a little bit better than all the rest. I'm not going to call them final bets. These are indeed best bets. And that's Carlos Leal against Chidi Njokuani. Another fighter coming off of a knockout loss. His money line has also moved in pretty aggressively too. He was minus 200 earlier in the week. You can get him at minus 120 now. I make him closer to minus 140. Coming off of that knockout loss to Muslim Salikov, where he was a big favorite, just got caught with a counter. Chidi's the bigger man, 4 inches taller, has a 6-inch reach advantage, and is a very dangerous fighter early, but he's also 37 years old, and he cuts a lot of weight to get to 170. He actually missed weight 2 fights back. He strained his voice. He sounds the way he does. Sounds like a pack-a-day smoker because of a bad weight cut. So the weight cuts have not been kind to Chidi, both in terms of his physicality, but also in terms of his cardio in extended fights. Whereas Carlos Leal, certainly very high up in luck ratings for his loss to Renat Fakhretdinov, which was just a straight up blind robbery, one of the worst in recent memory. But Carlos Leal, about as good at sustaining and building as any fighter in the sport. Definitely on some supplements, has a lot of back knee, but he throws 1,000,000 strikes per minute and can do it for all 15 minutes of the fight. So really the main concern is the recent knockout loss and what his durability looks like coming back from that loss, and the potential that he could get overwhelmed in the opening round. But I like Leal pre-fight at minus 120 all the way up to minus 135. And I like him live, especially after round 1. I think that may be the best price point and the best entry point on Leal, because Chidi should be dangerous early. Projections like the over or the goes to decision here, but this should be a very violent fight. I'd be pretty surprised if it didn't finish. It's just a huge number on it to go all 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. Billy, I would imagine you expect to finish here as well. How do you view Leal around minus 120 in terms of value?
Yeah, I love that. That's another one I've added to my bet slip while you were talking, because I was close to that on my own. Such as there is a good knockout loss. There obviously isn't. It's better to not get knocked out, and it's better to not lose. Such as there is a good one. A 42-second quick knockout to Muslim Salikov and then 8 months off, 7 months off, whatever it's been, is about as good of a scenario as you can be in coming off a knockout loss. So I'm not as concerned about that as we usually talk about guys with the durability issues. He wasn't just getting dominated for 10 minutes and TKO'd. He just got caught. It happens sometimes, even if you're really good. Still a little scary against a guy like Chidi, who's got some pop for a little bit. But yeah, I'll have a small play on Leal pre-fight, and then live even partway through round 1. I think if you can get it, might actually be the best way to do it. Those are tricky. If you wait to the end of round 1 and it's minus 150 or whatever, I'll sacrifice the line move on that as well.
Another fighter I think is undervalued, Michel Pereira around minus 145. I make him closer to minus 180 going up against Zachary Reese. Reese, very similar to Juliana Miller in terms of the striking defense, all the way down at 39%. He's also a guy who tends to accept bottom position as well and look for submissions off of his back. So he's just generally not a good minute winner because he accepts a lot of damage and spends a lot of time trying to fight off of his back, looking for submissions. Now, Michel Pereira does a lot of dumb stuff and is very capable of jumping right into a submission after hurting Zachary Reese. But in general, he should be the better wrestler here. He is a very competent jiu-jitsu practitioner. In fact, probably underutilizes that aspect of his skill set. And he's clearly the better striker in this matchup as well. I think the main concern is just motivation, the fact that he's looked flat in his recent performances, albeit against better competition, where Reese is now taking a step up in competition here. But he just seems like a guy who, after his loss to Fluffy Hernandez, may have checked out, realizing he's not a potential future title contender. And he's just showing up for the paycheck. So motivation is my primary concern for Michel Pereira this weekend. The recent losses, potential cut looming, maybe a career in karate combat suits him best because he could do some crazy stuff there. Who's the other guy that we had? The Brazilian dude who would just dance in the cage and basically did capoeira stuff. He ended up going over to karate combat. I'm blanking on it now. Yeah,
but I would have said Michel Pereira, but yeah, I know who you mean.
Yeah, very, very similar fighting style and entertainment style. But yeah, I think this is a matchup for Pereira to potentially get back on track. He should be able to punch Reese really hard in the face right from the start of the fight. And if not, he should be able to take him down and get on top of him for extended amount as well. Billy, do you have any thoughts on Pereira against Reese this weekend? And then we have one more fight that we're going to discuss before we get out of here.
Yeah, I hear you, and I don't disagree with anything you said, but there's a better way to bet it. And that is Michel Pereira to land as many as one takedown at plus 150. I've had a note on my document sheet that I work off of all week that when Michel Pereira takedowns open, I want to be a part of that. I think they put it up literally between when we started this podcast and when you got to that point, because it was not when I checked right beforehand. First of all, there's the motivation thing, but coming off 3 losses, this is one where you really need to win a fight more than you need to do a backflip or other cool stuff. And that's when guys who don't wrestle enough tend to go into the wrestling, is when you need it, right? You need the win. We're not trying to win fight of the night. We're just trying to win. And to your point, Zach Reese likes to do jiu-jitsu, and he likes to do jiu-jitsu off his back. So it's the perfect storm, plus 150. I like Michel Pereira's money line. That's fine, but you're getting a way better price on a very correlated outcome with him winning, which is him landing at least one takedown.
Final fight that we didn't get to, Jacoby Smith.
Josiah Harrell. I'll step in and bail Sean out on that one. Josiah Harrell signed with the UFC a couple years ago. In his pre-fight medical exam, they discovered some kind of weird brain malformation. Had to go get brain surgery and was out for an extended period of time. Since he came back, I'm going to look this up while I stall a little bit here, but it was 3 or 4 fights in a super short time period to earn his spot back in the UFC. Yeah, since the beginning of 2025, he's won 4 fights, all finishes, one against the young assassin who's 40-something years old, Melvin Guillard. But some tough guys in there as well. Now coming up on short notice to fight Jacoby Smith, D1 wrestler from Oklahoma State. I reached out to one of my BJJ buddies, black belt, knows Josiah because Josiah trained a lot in Ohio, was at some local tournaments. The friend from BJJ, also Lyrical, who does the BJJ-inspired rap that you should all check out. Gift Wrap Volume 2 is out, all streaming services. But Lear let me know that Harold, really well-known, sent me a clip. Harold hit the Demetrius Johnson, suplex armbar in a fight. Great grappler. The problem with that when you're fighting a D1 wrestler is that I think this has a very strong possibility of just being a bad kickboxing match, because Jacoby Smith probably shouldn't engage with the ground game at all of Harold. I don't think Harold can land takedowns on Jacoby Smith. And Smith is just a better athlete, so can probably win the striking just based on that. But I'm very excited about Harold's prospects moving forward when he's not fighting All-American wrestlers. So that is my overall take. I don't think we even have goes to decision up there as a bet right now. I'm seeing over 1.5 on DraftKings. If the over 2.5 is, super juicy plus money, or goes to decision is plus money, might take it because there's just a strong chance of grapplers poorly kickboxing each other in this fight.
Yeah, that was going to be my argument to you. It's 1.5 minus 188, which means the ghost of the decision should be around even money.
Yeah.
That's where I would lean. I haven't projected this one out fully yet because we don't really have odds for it. It was late booking, but it does seem like a tough debut matchup for Harold. Not only do we like Jacoby Smith, but just stylistically, you're come from a grappling base. You're trying to wrestle a guy who's a wrestler, who's also bigger than you, 3 inches taller, 4-inch reach advantage for Jacoby Smith. So yeah, I think this is a really tough matchup for Harold. Does seem like he has talent, but I agree. I was initially thinking, given the stylistic nature, this one to go all 15 minutes, and we should be getting, I would imagine, right around even money on that prop. So I'll certainly be looking out for that one. Do you have a price target in mind for that?
Yeah, I think anything plus money is about where I was. I mean, that's easy to say, like off the top of your head, like, yeah, better than 50% chance, but that's about where I would put it. I don't have an exact number in mind.
Yeah, I just want to see if I have an initial projection. I don't think I did, just because I didn't have any prop odds for these guys. I didn't have an initial number, so we'll see where I end up projecting that one out. But that'll do it. We got to all 14 fights. That'll do it for our UFC betting preview. You can find more UFC betting content from both Billy and myself on actionnetwork.com. And remember, if you'd like to instantly tail some of the bets that we discussed on today's show, look for the quick links both in the podcast and the video description, or visit actionnetwork.com/bet now. Don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app and sign up for Action Pro for immediate access to expert picks and analysis and my pro projections. Best of luck with all your bets this weekend. Enjoy the violence. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here next week. After the next 10 weeks, he's got a big run of UFC cards coming up.